on Facebook, and I've got everyone up here, and hopefully you can hear me. All is good. All right, so this morning I'm going to do a little bit more of a Pilates bar class. So I like to change it up. Oh my God, look at my dog. Okay, you probably can't see my dog. Wait, let me show you. Look, wave. The dog might bark. Okay, usually I don't know what's going to be. Okay, he's not always sitting there. All right, so anyways, hopefully he doesn't drive us crazy through the class. This morning we're going to do a little bit more of a bar Pilates class. So I try to change it up. Hi, Leslie. Good morning. I put on my makeup this morning. It's the only day I put on makeup. The dog is so cute. I know, it's so cute. Do you see Homer? Homer in the background. Okay, so this morning a little bit more of a bar Pilates. You can use your cans. You can use your cans. I've got a block. You can use a block. I also have a ball. Do you have a ball? Hi, Dahlia. Hey, babe. If you have a ball, awesome. You can use your ball. If you don't have a ball, that's fine. We can modify. So everything can be done without, but I'm going to do some exercises with. So if you have it, just changing it up a little bit. You can always use a stuffed animal, something else. Okay, modify. You've got your cans. You've got your weights. We're going to start standing. Are we good? Let me start some music. I hope Homer behaves. That's all I can say. Oh, I forgot about my earbuds today. All right. I guess we're okay. All right. I hope we're feeling good. So I got my weights, my block, my ball. Good. My dog. Oh, my dog. Love my dog. Dog is so cute. All right. Roll your shoulders. Roll your shoulders. Hi. Good morning. Good. Abs engaged. Breathe. Little cloudy out, but guess what? It's going to get nice and sunny, and a beautiful weekend is coming up. So I'm really excited about the sunshine. Sunshine makes me happy. Nice. Come forward. Roll those shoulders forward. Breathe. Start to think about pulling your belly button into the spine. Nice. Roll up. Roll up. Nice. Take a big stretch up. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. One last time. Beautiful. Hold your hands up. Nice. Look up. Soft knees. Come forward. Take a nice stretch here of your back. Pull your belly button into the spine. And breathe. Beautiful. Open up your chest. So remember, your bar is for your balance. Some of you may need your chair. Sorry, I said your bar. Your bar is for your balance, but we don't have a bar. Your chair is for your balance. You may need your chair. You may not need your chair. Challenge yourself. Use it if you need it. Take a beautiful stretch to the side. Other side, soft knees. That's it. Breathe. Beautiful. Nice. Start with one weight in your hand or one can. I just got a really little weight right here. I want you to bring up your right knee and put it down. I want you to inhale, exhale. 6, shoulders back. 5, breathe. 4, abs engaged. You got 3, 2, 1. Now change it only if you like. Inhale, exhale, lengthen. Inhale, reach it up. Exhale, lengthen. There's a little bit of balance here. 6, breathe. Inhale, exhale for 5. Oh yeah, you got it. 4, abs engaged. 3, beautiful. 2 more, just warming you up. Last time. I love it. Hold. Hold. 8, 7, 6, 5. Relax your shoulders. 3, 2, 1. Switch. Beautiful. Other side. So all we did was we lifted. We lowered. This time if you want to add your weight. 8, 3, 7, 6. Beautiful. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. All right, you ready? Hinge. Optional, or you can just stay up and down with your knee. Breathe. Abs engage, shoulders down. I'm getting warmer, you're getting a little bit warm. Soft supporting knee. We have 4 more times right here. 4, breathe, balance. That's it. Woo. 30. Abs engage for 2. Last time. Take your time. Hold. Hold for me right here. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Let it go. Shake, shake, shake it, shake it. Bend your knees. Circle, circle. That's it. Circle, circle. Switch directions. It's 4, 3, 2, and 1. Love it. All right. Let's start with putting your weight down for right now. Hold your hands on your hips. You have your chair for balance if you need it. Let's go. Releve. Drop. Lift. Drop. Shoulders relaxed. Nice. 5, 6. Yes, that is my dog right there. 7. Wow. 8. You better behave. Alternate. 8, 7, 6, 5. Pull your abs. 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Up slow. It's 4, 3, 2. Get tall. And 4, 3, 2. Come down. Do it again. We've got double 8. Drop. 7. Pulling those abs. Activate the quads and the glutes. That's it. We've got 4 more. It's 4, 3, 2, and 1. Alternate. It's 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come up. It's slow. 4, 3, 2, 1. Come down. 4, 3, 2. Are you ready? All right. So let's hold on to that chair. I think you may need it for this part. So I'm going to come up on those toes. Are you ready? We're going to squat and lift. Squat and lift. Squat and lift. Give me 4 more here. It's 4. Now, if you don't want to hold, let go. It's 3. It's 2. It's 1. Little pulses right here. 8, 7. If you don't want to be on those feet, up on those toes, you don't have to. 4, 3, 2, 1. Singles again. It's lift. Hips back. Breathe. Let's pretend we're in Tuesday's bar class, everyone. 4, 3. I miss you guys so much. 2. And 1. Hold and pulse again. 8. Hands on or off. Hips back. Make sure you're protecting your knees. 4, 3, 2. Stay here for me. We open. We close. We open. We close. 6. Breathe. Shoulders relax. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Quick ones right here. It's 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Beautiful. Grab your weights. Grab your hands. Grab whatever you got. All right. So I'm going into first position with my feet. Toes are turned open. Heels are kissing together. Plie, row. Plie, row. Beautiful. So let me talk to you for a second. Are you making sure you're taking a pic of your workout every day? Doesn't have to be doing a JCC class. Could be doing anything. And you're going to tag, We Are J Fitness, My J Workout, JCC Toronto. And you have a chance to win a spin bike. I have to tell you, during this time, I'm loving having my spin bike. So it's an awesome opportunity to get a free bike. So do it. I want you to hold here and pulse. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. If you need your balance, let go of your weights. Do it without weights. So you can put your hand down if you need. But I'm going to do it like this. Plie, press. Step back for Facebook. Plie, press. We've got 8. Exhale, inhale. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Press it here. Just hold the arms. Pulse it here. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Give me another set right here. It's 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Can you hold your diamond? You see my diamond shape of my legs? Can you hold it and squeeze and open and 6, 4, 3. If you need to stand up, no problem. Can you get a little lower and press 8 and 7? So if it bothers your knees at all, please modify. 4, 3, 2, 1. Can you do another set? Get lower. 8. Oh yes. 7. Breathe. 6. Do you feel it? 5. Just warming you up. 4, 3, 2, 1. And press. Last set. 8. Woo! 7. Breathe. 6. Belly button in. Hold that balance. 4, 3, 2, 1. Let it go. Shake it. We're not done. We're not done. How are we doing? Woo! All right. I'm going into my second position. So, second position, I like to say, is just the toes hanging over the mat slightly. We're going to bend and row. Bend and row. Bend and row. Beautiful. I want another set of 8 right here. It's 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Are you ready? On your toes. Plie, front raise. Woo! Breathe here. Now, I want you to feel like you're going straight down against a wall. So my butt is not back. I'm not squatting. I'm sliding down a wall. 7 more. Breathe. 6. That's it. 5, 4, 3. Now, after this, you can put those weights down or hold them at your chest. All right, here it is. So, weights can be down or here because you might want your balance. I'm going to do without balance. Okay? Press. Option, press. Option, press. All right, what I want you to do is hold them here. Drop your heels. Are you ready? Get as low as you can. I feel that burn in my legs too. 8 on the right. 8, 7, 6. Get low. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 8 on the left. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 4 on the right. 3, 2, 1. 4 on the left. 4, 3, 2, 1. 2 on the right. 2 on the left. Singles for me. 8, 7, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, stay here. Option. Or you're holding your chair, right? Hold. Hold. 1 flat, 1 releve. Flat, releve. We have 8. And breathe. And 7. My legs are burning. 6. And 5. And 4. And 3. And 2. And 1. Pulse. Woo! You're doing great. Beautiful. Can you keep the right heel up? 8. Only halfway down, halfway up. 7. 6. Oh my God. 5. You're doing great. 4. 3. 2. 1. Pulse it for me. 8. 7. 6. 5. 4. 3. 2. 1. Other side. All right. Down halfway. 7. Homer's being such a good boy. 3. 5. Hold that belly button in. 4. 3. 2. 1. Hold and pulse. 8. 7. 6. 5. 4. 3. 2. 1. Let it go. We're not stretching yet. I want you to hold your chair. Lift. Lower. Lift. All right, so you've got your balance, you've got your side raise of the arm and the leg at the same time. Breathe. How are we doing? I'm sweating. I want 8 more right here. 8. 7. 3. 6. 5. 4. 3. 2. 1. Can you just hold it here? Balance only if you can, or put your hand down. 8. 7. 8 more here. 8. 7. 6. 5. 4. 3. 2. Stay here. Circle. Use your hand on the chair if you need. Switch directions. Focus on your balance if you're balancing. Feel that burn. You got 4 more. 4, 3, 2, 1. Stay here. Lift the leg. Close. Open. Close. Open. Close. Now I have a small weight, I'm going to tell you. It's only 2 pounds. If you have heavier, that's totally up to you. But when we do the oblique crunch, it might be a little hard, but you'll see. There's 3 here. There's 2 here. There's 1 here. Hold it here. Squeeze, stretch. Squeeze, stretch. Squeeze, stretch. Squeeze, stretch. Breathe. Go at your own pace. 8 more here. Breathe. 8. Woo, I feel it. 7. 6. 5. 4. That's it. 3. 2. 1. Can we pulse? Can we do one more set? Guess what? I want you to pivot. Put your weight down. If you have a ball, take it behind the leg. Same leg is up. You can be here or you can be here. The hinge. Press, bring it in. Squeeze the ball. So why am I using a ball? Just to activate the hamstring here. Notice my supporting knee is bent. Abs are engaged, shoulders are down. 4, 3. You're going to feel this a lot on your supporting leg and on the other leg. So we've got 8. Good. Balance. Breathe. Long back. 6. Wow. I'm feeling that burn. All right, hold it here. Pulse, pulse, pulse. Woo! Woo! You got another set of 8 right here. 8. That leg is burning. 4, 3, 2. Are you ready right here? It's fire hydrant. Lift, drop. Oh, wow, oh, wow. I'm feeling this. Wow. Hinge. And I'm sweating. I have to tell you, I'm sweating. So I want you to have a nice long back. Make sure your posture looks good. You know, for me, posture is number 1. Would you believe we have another set of 8 right here? Oh, wow. 8. I'm going to move my chair a little bit forward. Good. Abs engaged. Can we finish this off? I'm dying on the supporting side. I may not be able to get on my bike today. All right, can you pulse it for me? 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 more set. It's 8, 7. We're going to stretch it right after this. 5, 4, 3, 2. Wow, let it go. Did you feel that? OMG. Wow. Hi, Gail. Wow. Circle. Circle. Wow. Breathe. Hi, Marla. Oh, wow. All right. Now, what I'm going to do right now is stretch it. The leg you were standing on the whole time, cross it. Hold if you can right here. Okay? Looking at the comments. Good morning. Stay right here. I want you to feel that stretch where that's burning on that supporting side. Do you feel it? Hold. Get lower. Abs engaged. Are you ready to do the other side? Then we're going to go down to the mat. Beautiful. Slowly. Come on up. Uncross. Good. Move your chair. Take a sip of water if you need. Ooh, I am hot. Okay. Are you ready? This is where we started. Abs engaged with our shoulder. Ooh, that leg is sore. I'm not going to lie to you. Woo! Keep going. Thank you, Joyce. Keep going. Just to the shoulder height of that weight. Maybe I wasn't even doing that, but anyway, that's how it's done. Soft supporting knee, we've got 8. Breathe. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And for the pulse, you can hold, you can let go, you can have one arm here, pulse it. Strong leg. 8 more. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stay here, lift it up. Bend, straight, bend, straight, bend, straight. I didn't forget the circles, don't worry. 4 more, and straight, and 3, and straight, and 2, and straight, and 1. Stay, circle. Woo! You can bring the weight down if you prefer. 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch directions. 4, 3, 2, 1. Bend. Here we go. Squeeze. Stretch. Oh, wow. I feel that in my shoulder, even with this 2-pound weight. Abs engaged. You got 8 more here. 8, 7, 6, 3, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold and pulse. 8, 7, 6. Squeeze it. 5. Those obliques. 1 more set. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Put your weight down. Pivot. If you have a ball behind your hamstring, lift. I want you to feel like you're footprinting the ceiling. Okay? Hinging. That's it. We're doing great here. So we're going to finish this off. We'll have about 15 minutes on the mat. Abs engaged. 8 more here. 8. You're doing great. 7. Strong body. 6. 5. 4. 3. 2. 1. Pulse it for me. One more set of 8 here. All right, are you ready? Fire hydrant open, close. I know you're feeling it. Abs engaged. Long back. Beautiful. We've got another set of 8, and we've got those pulses. Stay with me. I feel that burn too. Squeeze that ball. The ball is optional, right? 4 more. 4. 3. 2. Oh, wow. 1. Pulse here. 2 counts of 8. Long back. Try to hold your balance. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Shake it. Woo. That hurts. That hurts. Beautiful. All right. Give me a stretch. Cross. Ooh, wow. Oh, yeah. I feel that burn right there. Hi, Heather. Wow. Pain, pain. Good pain. Excellent pain. All right, so listen. We're going to do our roll down. First, we're going to stretch out the quads. We're going to do our roll down into plank. Burn. Absolutely. We want to feel that burn. Slowly roll up. Beautiful. All right, stretch. Stretch your quad. If you need to balance, balance. Knees together. Soft supporting knee. Arm up if you want. Beautiful. Knees together. Feel that nice stretch in the front of the leg. Beautiful. Thank you, Evelyn. Stretch. That's it. I'm out of the Facebook page. Hi. Homer's in and I'm out. Okay. Good. Now, hopefully, when I go down to the mat, Homer won't come on top of me. We'll see. Most days he's sleeping, so I don't know why he decided to join us today. But all good. Okay. Let it go. Good. So we're down to the chair. Chair is gone. Come on to the back of the mat, wherever that might be. Belly button in. Slowly tuck your chin and let yourself roll down. Now this should feel great. Okay. Let the back just release. Let the head nod side to side. If it doesn't feel great, bend your knees and rest your elbows on your thighs, okay? Slowly come back up. Pull your belly button in, bone by bone. Good. Let's do that again one more time. Inhale, tuck your chin, come on down. So depending on your flexibility, you can hold under your toes. You can just let the arms circle. Switch directions. Belly button in, slowly roll up. All right, are you ready to go into our plank? I'm not doing 3 minutes today. Don't worry. Rolling down. Rolling down. Let's walk forward towards plank right here. Homer, no. Hold. My hands are under my shoulders. I'm pushing back through my heels. I'm holding. Go sit down, go sit. Stay. Come into a down dog for me. Walk your heels. Walk your heels. Take a nice stretch from that standing calf raising. Come forward to your plank. I have a little challenge for you. You can lift one leg, slowly switch. Lift the other leg, slowly switch. Can you lift the opposite arm? Really slow. 8. Just slow and tiny. 7. 6. Slow and tiny. 5. 4. 3. Core engaged. 2. Just a little challenge for you. 1. Without coming to your knees, come to your elbows. Hold. Stay. Nice, perfect straight line. Shoulders on top of the elbows. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, stretch. Beautiful. Take a nice stretch back. Come into your tabletop. Round your back. Arch. What's the proper form? Hands over the shoulder, hands under the shoulders, knees under the hips. Exhale here. Inhale, arch. Exhale here. Inhale, arch. Exhale here. Inhale, arch. Exhale, round. Inhale, arch. 2 more. Last time. Come to neutral. I want you to turn out your toes. Turn your toes. Lift an inch up. Lower down. Lift an inch. Lower down. Give me 6. Just an inch. Give me 5. Everything engaged. Give me 4. 3. Neutral. 2. Don't drop your head. 1. Can you stay up? Can you alternate your legs up? Listen. These are just hovering. Go back to the first one, which is just lift and lower if it's too much. Okay? Just give me 6. Squeeze your butt. 5. 4. Do you feel it? 3. Just stay low. 2.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our 3rd series. My name is Simona Newman, and I'm here from UJA's Jewish Service. And this is our final installment in our series on childhood and adolescence. And I'm so excited to have Dr. Romanelli joining us live from Jerusalem. I don't even want to get us waiting for an introduction here. I want to jump right in and turn it over to Dr. Romanelli. Dr. Romanelli, why don't you start and tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about how you got here?
Hi, everyone. So welcome to Jerusalem. I'm here in my clinic. My name is Dr. Assael Romanelli. I'm a couple and family therapist. I'm a clinical social worker, and I run an institute called Potential State for Enriching Relationships. And my background is experiential Jewish education, and I was also a shaliach, an emissary for the Jewish Agency in London. And kind of the reason I'm on this call is because after I came back from being an emissary in London, I ran a gap year program for Jewish, basically emerging adults, Jewish high school graduates in Israel. I ran a gap year for 5 years. And as I was doing that, I was transitioning into my master's in clinical social work. And I made the transition from education to therapy. And part of that journey, I was really interested in exploring what effect does living in Israel have on these emerging adults. I do want to say, and this is important to the research, is that I grew up, my dad was a shaliach aliyah. He was a Jewish agency emissary to America. So I grew up back and forth. So I know viscerally, how does it feel to be a Jewish kid and teenager and growing up in two different countries, in two different cultures, in two different societies. So what I basically did as my master's thesis was to explore and kind of follow these Jewish emerging adults, these Jewish high school graduates, and see how does this year in Israel affect their identity. And I kind of did it as a qualitative research when I was focusing a lot on the concept of home, because for someone who's bilingual and bicultural, my dad's American, my mom's Israeli, the issue of home and identity has always been very interesting for me. And when Simona kind of contacted me, and like since then I've obviously developed into therapy and improvisation and stuff like that, I'm really happy to kind of share what I've learned and kind of what I thought about. Also for the parents listening, also for the young adults listening, and also for the professionals, the Jewish professionals who are running such programs. So yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, so what I thought we would do now is I do a short kind of presentation on what I found, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, comments about this. And obviously, this presentation will be sent to you. We won't go over everything that's written, but I just want us to have kind of a common language to know what we're talking about. So let's hit it. Let's go. So when we talk about emerging adults, is kind of the psychological academic term for young adults from the ages of 18. It used to be 18 to 25. It's getting longer and longer. What's the characteristic of these emerging adults? I call them gems because they're Jewish emerging adults. Is there's a moratorium in their identity. They have a long time to kind of explore who they are. They don't describe themselves as adolescents. They don't think they're adults. They're somewhere in the middle. And what really is characteristic of this age group is they're always moving. Accommodation, education, beliefs, dietary restrictions, exploration of work, love, and worldview. And I'm sure we all know this.
One, stretch for me. Woo! Now that leg lift, I want to do it in an elbow plank. I want you to footprint the ceiling, 8 on each side.
Next slide. So basically, they have 3 developmental tasks for these emerging adults to become adults. One is to cope effectively with leaving home. What does cope effectively mean? Not just leaving home and moving away or moving.
Plank. If you don't like that, just hold your plank for me. Okay? Are you ready? Here we go. Come back into your elbow plank. Can you see me? Bend.
Separate from my family of origin in a way that I can still function. The second thing is develop mature intimacy with friends and partners. And the third is advance in the process of individuation and self-definition. That actually means it's like
down, 7, stay low, 6, 5, squeeze, 4, squeeze your butt, 3, strong body, 2.
What's their philosophy? What do they believe in? What's important for them? Their value system. And even in this research, you can see that I was already kind of stepping into the therapy world because as an educator, I was less thinking about these things.
Hold, readjust. What can you do if you don't like it? Hold here. Other side. Bend, lift. Keep your hips down. 7, you can tap your knee.
Experiences, but as a therapist, I'm thinking about psychological growth and maturity and actually preparing these young adults to create families of their own. And as a family therapist, I can talk about and I can see now the importance.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Put it down, stretch. Woo!
Importance that these core experiences, these gap year experiences, really shape the way these emerging adults later marry and raise kids of their own. Let's keep going. So why do these emerging adults?
I feel my arms. Do you feel your arms? Amazing. All right, have a seat. Woo.
So they have fun. Some of them just want to get out of, move away from home. They want to try something different. They want to mix it up, and this is considered a legitimate exploration. For some of them, they just want to prolong the decision about university and career. They don't want to decide so much. I think it
like really sweating. I'm moving up so I can see you. All right. I want you to grab. I'm not done. I am not done. It might be 10.
Okay, well, what am I committing to? What am I going to be studying for the rest of my life? Some of them don't know anything, right? So that's a way to kind of postpone that. And for some, it's about engaging with Judaism, exploring the Judaism, and also this whole idea of Israel and Aliyah, which I want to expand about a little bit later. So there's different.
Hold your weight. Are you ready? Come back to your tailbone. I want a nice long body. Ears on top of your shoulders. Hold. Lift up your right leg. Put it down.
These emerging adults come to these programs. Click. Keep going. So the question I asked them very simply was, what was home for you? I met these gems in the beginning of the year, in the middle of their gap year, at the end of their gap year.
Abs engaged. Hold. Can you go a little lower? Yes, you can. Can you bring your weight up? 8. Beautiful. 7. 6. I will finish.
Similar questions like, what is home for you? And what I discovered is, click. So in the beginning of the year, for most of them, home was in relation to a concrete place. It was either their address, their neighborhood, or somewhere that.
10, 15. 5. Shoulders down. 4. Come on, if you woke up, let's finish this. 3. 2. 1. Can you bring both legs up? Bring them.
And for some of them, it was related to significant others. For instance, where my parents live, where my brother lives, where my dog is, okay? And what I discovered is as the year progressed, because of the nature of gap years, of the semi-
Left, you have 8. 7, you're doing so good. 6. 5. 4.
the autonomous nature of them, which we'll discuss in a second, slowly the definition of home became less about a concrete place and more about a feeling. So it's a significant other and feeling, and the significant others shifted from being their parents or their siblings.
3. 2. 1. Stay. Point and flat. Point, flat. Point, flat. Elbows.
To their friends. And the feeling, home is a feeling. Home is where I feel safe. Home is where I feel I'm accepted. Home is where I feel like I'm seen. And this transition is really symbolic of kind of the process that they've done.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take a break.
With their individuation, with their successfully leaving home. And I think as we're thinking about like the place of Israel in progressive Jewish or in all Jewish young adults living abroad is like, how do we do that? How
Take a little stretch forward. What about if I get you to do a tricep extension in that boat? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. All right. Grab both weights. Even if you want to go heavier, like an 8.
can we help? How can you leverage and use Israel in the sense of helping these kids consolidate their perception of who they are? At the end of the day, our goal as educators and as parents and as humans is to keep developing who we are, to be more solid and more comfortable.
Feel free. Go back to your boat. Hold. Then you can put your feet down or up. Good. Overhead. We're going to do 2 counts of 8. Balance. It's not easy. Use your abs. You don't have to do this.
And more clear on who we are. So let's click. So when I was exploring like what made those shifts, and I was thinking, what happens in these gap years that makes these gems develop, achieve the developmental tasks? So one is
you can modify. Can we do 8 more? 8. 7. Your dog.
a semi-autonomous program. And I think gap years, like a lot of long-term programs, they're semi-autonomous in the sense that there is a schedule and you might even have counselors, but there's more of independence there. You have volunteering, you have accommodation, you need to take care of your own budget. So it's kind of
So cute, I know. 6. So funny. Now he's actually going to sleep. 5. 4. Woo! 3. Funny, in 9 weeks he's never come like into the room. Quite like this. 2. 1. Woo! Let it go. Nice stretch. All right. Always up now. Okay. On your back. Get your legs. Actually, let's go into a bridge first. A little stretch, okay? Little stretch. So stretch is lifting your hips, placing your feet down. Nice. Breathe. Hip flexors stretch. In this position, release your glutes for a second just to strengthen your back. Good. Lower, bone by bone. Hug. Rock. All right, grab your weights. Or not. Table top your legs. Weights up. Let's just start with the legs. Right heel drop. Bring it back up. Left heel drop. Now, little space under your back is your neutral spine. If you focus here on what you're doing, you're going to feel this. Let's do 8. Just the legs. 7. Exhale down. Inhale up. 6. Breathe. 5. 4. 3. 2. 1. Are you ready? Opposite arm. Oops, I gotta think about this for a second. Opposite leg. Okay? And then switch. Okay? Now you can bring the weight that is up all the way down to the mat. Now I'm straightening the legs and it's totally optional. Okay? You can keep them bent or straight. 8. 7. 6. Breathe for 5. So opposite leg, opposite arm. 4. 3. Bend your knees if you need to. 2. Don't use weights if you don't want to. Last set right here is 8. 8. Breathe. 7. 6. 5. 4. Strong legs. 3. 2. 1. Bend your knees. Take your legs, if you can, straight out and up. So modification. Hands under your bum. Straight out and in. Straight out and in. Okay? Option, arms at the same time. Exhale, inhale. Exhale, inhale. If this is tough on your back, modify single legs. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Breathe. We have one more set of 8 right here. 8. And we're going into circles. 7. 6. We're almost done, guys. 5. Stay with me. 4. 3. 2. 1. Let's first take a little break. Rock. Beautiful. Press into your bridge one more time with those arms overhead. Take a nice breath here. Inhale. Exhale, lower. Lift both legs up. Straight if you can, hands by your side. Circle. We are almost there. This is our last exercise. 3. Big or small. 4. 5. 6. 7. Well, I kind of won. We have one more. 8. Switch directions, but it's kind of part of the stretching. 8. 7. You're doing amazing. 6. 5. You can bend your knees if you need to. 4. 3. 2. Okay, here it is.
1. Butterfly. Put your feet down. Open your knees. I'm turning the music down. Not even sure if you can hear it that well. Butterfly stretch. Say yes. Good. Hold your head. Lift. So my head is in my hands. I've interlaced my hands to hold my head. There's no pulling on the neck. Curl halfway down. So I'm using my abs. Squeeze, contract, breathe. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Can you give me one more set like that? It's 8. Eyes on the ceiling, chin off the chest. 7, 6, 5, 4. We're almost there. This is it. 3. We're going to do a quick little stretch. 2, 1. Hold. Pulse. Breathe. Keep it tight. Last set of 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Flip. On your tummy. Right here. Beautiful. So all I want you to do is hands under the shoulders, baby. Or, if you're okay, Nina, hi, I put on makeup for you today. So right here, shoulders down. My friend Nina says we should wear makeup every day to feel good.
Sweet. They're not just being thrown to like renting an apartment and live by yourself and go work, but they're not also under our roof. They're somewhere in the middle, and that semi-autonomous, that liminal space really forces them to deal with their anxiety and also kind of confront the world in a more scaffolded way. The second thing I've discovered that really affects them is the exposure to new culture and society. So it's not just about I'm far away from home, far away from Canada or from America or from London or from wherever or from Australia, but I'm living in a different society with a different value system, and it's basically challenging every perception I have about life. You know, about personal etiquette, about communication, about value systems, about safety. And I think what happens is that's challenging them. And if you think there's a concept of a relational self, that their self is always being built, all of our selves are being built in relation to what we're seeing, in relation to others. So this is a big threat on who they are. So that sends them, force them to rethink and recalibrate and recalculate and re-examine who they are and what's important for them. For most of these kids, it's the first time that they're living in a different place, let alone a different culture. So my parents do this all the time. But in Israel, they do it like this. Okay, which one's better? And they have this ego-dystonic little crisis where they have to say, well, the way my parents are doing it might not be the only way. And there's kind of like this crumbling, this anxiety that comes up with it, followed by kind of a slow rebuilding where they first collapse, like that perception collapses, and then they slowly build it. And what happens throughout the year, and it's beautiful to see it, obviously I'll send you guys the full research as well, is to see how they slowly reconstruct it. And then they take little elements from their past and little elements from their present. And they do kind of a mashup as they're slowly experimenting their way into individuation. It's trial and error. And hopefully they'll be having a lot of different evolutions within that gap year, and hopefully throughout their lives to kind of slowly fine tune, because our whole life is basically one long fine tuning of who we are. And the last element was distance and time away from old significant others. Because we have a relational self, and my perception of myself is shaped by the feedback I've been getting since I was a little child from my parents, from my siblings, from my best friends. So everybody knows me a certain way. Everyone knows me as the joker. Everyone knows me as the nerd. Everyone knows me as the princess. Everyone knows me as the quiet one or as the extrovert. But actually, when you're going to the other side of the world where people don't know and don't care about your past, you have a real chance to kind of reinvent yourself. And I can share from my personal experience. When I finished high school, I went on a gap year to a kibbutz in the south of Israel, literally in the middle of the desert. Nobody knew me. And it was really a way for me to rediscover different parts of myself. And I could bring out and explore and experiment with different shades. And what I've discovered is like this distance and time away, even though there's phones and mobile phones and internet, even though this research was a few years ago, but all the technology was there. But the fact that they're not with me on the day-to-day, the fact that I'm showing up and I can change my style, my hair color, the way I speak, the relationships I create really gives me a really good playground to experiment with my self-perception. That is individuation. Individuation is slowly see what makes me an individual. So we have the semi-autonomous program. I'm in, I'm out, I'm half-half. I'm at the other side of the world. I'm getting challenged by a lot of different things I see. And the distance, and nobody from my past knows me. I added there as well, Israel is a Jewish state, just as a sense of like that whole, there's another whole layer of that experience, which is Judaism, Israel, Zionism, that whole chestnut on all the different meanings, the political meanings, the religious meanings, the cultural meanings of that. Let's keep going. Click. I'm sure there's some parents out there listening, so these are just a few tips that I'm happy to ask for more questions afterwards. I'm happy to hear your comments. But like, these are the things I've discovered that can really help your kids grow, whether they're in a gap year or any program. Leaving home, to help them leave home, stay close, stay open, stay loving. Don't guilt them. When they call, don't say how lonely you are and how empty the house is without you. Don't be insulted that they slowly prioritize other things with other people or they don't answer your calls because they'd rather go out again with their friends. Allow the definition of home to change. It is in your enlightened self-interest that your kids develop their own sense of home beyond the geographical location. Why? Because you want them to be adaptable. You want them to adapt to the reality that's going to change. They're going to move in their lives, and you want them to be functional, flexible, spontaneous, improvisational adults. Individuation, encourage your exploration and instill confidence. You don't have to solve all their problems. Let them kind of get stuck and have this like crisis of faith, and then they don't really know, and they're like, why do you guys do that? Like, let them go through all those shades. Let them explore their different identities, even if it's different than when you are. Because if you get defensive and start battling them, they're just going to dig their heels in and choose an identity that's not necessarily what they want, but they're just going to do it just to prove it to you. So just give them that space. Give them that space to explore, to experiment. You don't have to spoon feed them. You don't have to guide them to what the right identity is. Give them that time. I want to say one more thing about that is, as a gap year manager, my biggest, like I was aiming for that the kids would say at the end of the year, I don't remember really how I came into this year. I would love for them to go through a process that they don't feel like they have to justify who they were in September. But in June, they can be like, wow, I don't even remember. I went through so many, evolutions of myself here. And the last thing is normalize the process. Share your own stories. Don't pretend like you were born like this with these identities and these preferences. Like, it's fine. It doesn't decrease for you. On the contrary, it shows that you also know what it is to search and to think and to fall and to fail and to love and to have your heart broken. Like, help them normalize that process. So that's on one leg on the parents. And we could ask me more about that, but let's do one more slide. The last slide is going to be about the educators out there. So how do you do this? And I'm going to email this to you. But the basic idea is you want to create a variety of participants. You want to have them living together in close proximity to challenge their relational self. Challenging your relational self is one of the tools that will help you grow. For that, you need a semi-autonomous program that you have that space, but you need someone to be holding you. A madrich, you need an attachment figure that kind of will be like with you throughout the program. So you could try all these different iterations of yourself, but somebody will be with you. Help them step out of their comfort zone. Remember the sentence, there's no comfort in the growth zone, and there's no growth in the comfort zone. You're gonna have to start stretching them. A lot of these kids are not used to being stretched by different activities, by mandatory activities, by volunteering with different populations that are not used.
Okay, I agree. Come down. Relax your shoulders. Do it again. Inhale. Press. Can you come all the way up? Don't push yourself if it doesn't feel good. 4, 3, 2.
You want to create this inner dissonance and what we call a positive anxiety within these participants. A positive anxiety means that I'm at the edge of my comfort zone. I don't really know how to do this, but I'm going to try. A lot of times you confuse negative.
1, stretch back. Yeah, stretch and hold. Beautiful.
Anxiety was positive anxiety. Negative anxiety is when I'm flooded and I'm like, ah. But positive anxiety is actually being at the edge of my comfort zone. That's where life begins. That's where we grow. So I think for a lot of our programs, and these young adults are not used to the positive.
Sit on your butt. Beautiful.
Hi. All right, good. Take a side stretch. Nice big side.
Anxiety, we're not used to that experience. The only place we'll allow it is in therapy, maybe. But why? Why can we not create more places of positive anxiety where we can take off the Teflon and have these kids be challenged, be stretched? Because at the end of the day,
Stretch. Relax your shoulder. And other side.
the goal is not for them just to be happy. The goal for them is to develop who they are. And how do you develop who you are? When you bump up against different things, when you meet different parts, when you get challenged and stretched, when you get confused, when you're perplexed. Those are the moments that you grow.
Hi, Maddie. Thank you for your beautiful community work and lots of classes, Marilyn. Thank you. Open your chest.
So
I think we'll stop there. I mean, I could talk for a lot longer.
No, perfect. I think that my plan is let's rewind a little bit. I'm going to ask you some questions.
Thank you guys so much for joining. Oh, is the sun coming out? Soon. Sherry, thank you so much. Maddie, thank you so much. Take a little tricep stretch. I love being here. I feel connected.
Logically with the slideshow. If anybody out there who's watching us live feels like this is a little bit redundant, feel free to spam us in the comments and just let us know to move on and keep going.
Here. Thank you, Bonnie. And yeah, it just makes me feel amazing to be part of this J community. Thank you so much.
So I'll start by saying that when you talk about home and this idea of concrete space, you mentioned that there's a physical dimension and that there's also this experiential dimension.
Switch. Gail, we all need it. Gail wrote great class. I needed this. We all need it every day, no matter how we feel like just sitting on the couch. My Dylan, thank you.
The experiential dimension would look like to kids on a program.
Before or during or after?
Ooh, good question. Let's say all three.
Thank you, Julia. No matter how much we feel like sitting on the couch, I push myself every day to move. Every single day we have to do it. Every day. Hi, Michelle.
You meet kids just as they're starting their gap year. As for most of these kids, it's the first time they've ever left home, let alone left the country. So I think for them, when they think of home, they go immediately to their house. Some of them it's going to be the address, and some it's going to be.
Thank you, Laura. Love you. Big stretch up. It's so important for mental health. It is so, so important. Thank you so much, Sherry. Inhale. So just do it.
That neighborhood, like the distance between my school and my house, or where my best friend lives, or even the shul sometimes. So it'll be these moments where I have the most memories of being me.
You know what? Even if it's a walk, whatever it is, whatever you can do every single day to make yourself feel good, do it. I love you guys. I miss you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Check the schedule. Alyssa, thank you so much. And I am now going off of.
Because again, the me is relational. So that's how they know themselves, as the brother of, as the son of, as the joker, as the jock, as whatever belonging to this society, to that club. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean by the experiential.
Instagram and Facebook. Have an amazing day, guys. Enjoy the beautiful weather.
Mm-hmm. And so,
yeah.
But do you think that there's a component of high impact experiences over the course of the year that changes that experiential, intangible notion of home into tying it into this concrete place of where they spend their year, if that makes any sense?
So I think usually what happens in these programs is that they move. They move locations, right? They go Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, a kibbutz in the south, one here in the north.
All of our programs that we work with, they travel at least usually about once a week.
So again, what we're basically doing, we're disrupting their ability to define home as connected to a concrete place. Mm-hmm. And I think that's not a bad thing. That's actually really good, because what you're doing is you're teaching them that home is where the heart is, right? You go where you are where you are. And we want to help them learn that. And the fact that gap years move all the time versus 18 years living in one house or maybe two or three to like moving every month or every week forces them to redefine home. And they cannot connect it anymore to a geographical location because Tel Aviv was their apartment for 2 months, but then they went to a kibbutz in the south. So which one's home? And then they slowly realized, well, actually, that's not where home is.
And moving on with this idea of concrete structures, I wanted to talk a little bit about relationships. And you mentioned that over the course of the year, these gems, their idea of a relationship really evolves to become a little bit more fluid, and it moves from family and immediate friends to including people in their programs. And you mentioned that this can really give kids a leg up when it's time to go back home and go to college and university. It helps them to pick better friends and relationships in the long term. What do you think about that?
So I didn't relate that so much in the presentation, but the 3 developmental goals are leaving home, creating mature relationships, and advancing in individuation. So let's talk a little bit about creating mature intimacy with partners, like also romantic, but also friends. So why the gap year? Because in the gap year, nobody knows my history. I'm usually coming alone or maybe with 1 or 2 friends, okay? So basically, I have a chance to create intimate relationships that are not based on the past, that are not based on our 7th grade teacher and how she was always used to do that and that, or whatever, sports club we were always watching. You're actually creating here and now relationships. And what's interesting about those relationships is that they're based on who you are now. This is a new reality. We're both in Israel right now, and I'm either with an Israeli or with another person from my program. And what I'm giving them a chance is to create a new relationship that's relevant for today. I can bring new, I call these business cards. So they have their business cards from home, but they can create new ones. And if I was an introvert back home, maybe in Israel, I want to explore with my dramatic side. And I want to be more extrovert. So now I'm creating relationships with people that know me this way.
Right.
Now, and it's interesting you're saying that because for some of them, they were also expressing the fear and anxiety of going back home. Because when I go back home, people are going to expect me to be in a certain way. But what if I'm not that way anymore?
Right. And changed over the course of the year.
Yeah. And for me, I think that's good because at the end of the day, you cannot be the same person. Every 7 years, your whole body is completely new. All the cells change in your body. This is an illusion that we're the same person all our life. And if we compare this to marriage, I always tell I'm a couple therapist, right? So I tell couples, we're all going to be married more than once in our life. The question is will it be with the same person, right? Because we're always changing. And like, I think if you can help our kids, these gems, understand that, and by giving them the opportunity to not only reinvent themselves, but create relationships that are based on who they are now, and they don't have to hide behind all the business cards that they came with. So that fear of coming back home, I don't think it's necessarily bad. I can share with you on my personal experience. After the army, I went to London for 2 years to be a shaliach, emissary, and that's where I got exposed to performing arts and improvisation and improv. And when I came back to Israel and I started teaching it, some of the old people, my friends, my old significant others, they were like, "What? But you never went to acting school. You never went to dance school." Like there was this dissonance, but it was clear to me, like if I wouldn't have had that opportunity, I couldn't have brought it back. I would have missed out on a really important evolution of who I am. And for a lot of these kids, this gap year allows them to bring out a different side of themselves that they might have not been able to do if they were still living at home or still with their significant others. And coming back and renegotiating their intimate relationships with their parents and peers and friends, I don't think that's bad. I think it's actually part of the process of individuation. Because if up until before I left, everybody loved me because I was smart or because I was pretty or because I was very athletic, and I come back and I'm actually a bit different. So now people are going to have to negotiate like, okay, can we do this? Can we evolve? Do we have another friendship going? Do we have another chapter together? And hopefully, and in this new chapter, I can be more myself, which is at the end of the day, what we all want. We want our kids, these gems, we want them to feel like they can be who they are. But people will love them for who they are and not who they're supposed to be.
Right. And I think what I'm about to say, I'm painting with quite a broad brush, so please don't hold me to it. But I think that there's something to be said about the cultural differences between young adults in Israel and Canada. In Israel, there's quite a bit of flexibility after kids get out of the army to kind of travel, figure out what you want to do before you lock yourself into a university degree. In North America, this idea that you have to go right on this one track immediately after high school into a college program or university program, I think can cause a lot of anxiety and quarter life crises in young adults. And having this year to kind of reinvent yourself start with a clean slate with people that you've never met before, I think it can really give kids a leg up in understanding who you want to be and who you want to present as when you go back home into this new environment. Because again, kids tend to go to school not in their immediate areas.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because at 18 years old, if you compare an average Israeli to a gem in Canada, so they have very different experiences. 18, you get a gun, right? And for 3 years, you're basically a soldier, right? So that's obviously postponing your process of individuation. It's the exact opposite. But you have more time. Those 3 years, you have time to explore, and a lot of them, we travel afterwards for another year. And I think at the end of the day, what we don't want to see, I love that you said quarter life crisis. I'm smiling because, it's a different reality here but that's a different story. But what I want to say to you is, like, we want to give kids an opportunity. Like, at 18, if I look back at myself, I had no idea what I wanted to do, let alone 24, let alone 25, let alone 28. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the emerging adults are becoming from 18 to 25. It's slowly coming to 30.
Right.
Because we don't know and we don't need to know. But the problem is like, if we rush them too fast to choose and to become specialists in something, we're missing out on different parts that they don't even know that they existed. I'm going back to myself. If I didn't go to London, I would never have discovered performing arts at age 25. And that would become a huge part of my life. It would be a huge part of my life, right? So I think for a lot of people, if we give them an opportunity, at the end of the day, some kids know. They know from age 0 they want to be doctors or lawyers, whatever. But for the vast majority of them, they only know because based on what they're getting, the feedback they're getting. I'm reminding you, when a kid looks into his mother's eyes, he sees himself. He sees himself through her eyes. She has a certain perception of him. That's not always the perception he has of himself. Let's get our kids, let's clean out their glasses so they can start seeing themselves and not just what we want them to see or the way we kind of either pigeonhole them or see them or hope they're going to develop as.
Okay, I'm going to shift gears and ask a little bit of a more serious question. I don't want to fumble over my words, so I'm going to read this one since I wrote it out. So you made a really astute observation towards the beginning of your research report regarding the unique nature of young Jewish adults going to Israel, which is, of course, a significant loss, which is, a significant loss on no one, and the subsequent cultural phenomenon that many of these gems are less attached to the religious forms of Jewish identification and often gravitate to Israel, and especially cities like Tel Aviv, as a secular alternative to exploring their identity from an ethno-cultural perspective rather than a religious affiliation. Did you find that to be true in the work that you've done? And how would you suggest that program organizers kind of cater to that self-discovery need?
Okay, so I'm going to be very blunt here, and I hope it's not going to offend anyone.
Please.
I think there's a major crisis right now in the Jewish world abroad, diaspora, whatever the PC word is today. Progressive young adult Jews are having there's a crisis, identity crisis, because the religious aspect of it, right, the halachic is not anymore part of their main identity, and Israel becomes that main part that makes us Jewish. Right? Think about birthright, right? Birthright is the lowest common denominator, Israel. The problem now is happening. Let's be real about this. The political reality of Israel is making Israel a harder pill to swallow for a lot of these progressive gems. A lot of them are very critical of Israel. A lot of them don't agree with what's happening. Okay, so what's happening right now is, up until now, Israel was like the go-to. So if you're not halachic, if you're not fully observant, and you really observe everything, and that is your core identity, the next thing you have to be Jewish is Israel. And now that this is under kind of attack, or it's a bit harder, it's less in the consensus. How do we help progressive liberal gems find meaning in their Judaism? I think I've always suggested this also because I was on both sides, right? I was an emissary, I was representing Israel to the Jewish world abroad, and I was also hosting, diaspora Jews in Israel. And I think I want to change the relationship from like Israel being something I need to defend, or like if anybody's attacking Israel, I have to defend, like, Israel advocacy. It needs to change. The discourse needs to change. And I always, as a therapist, I always say Israel is like my mom. Like, I love her sometimes I can't stand her. Sometimes I'm feeling super close to her. Sometimes I just want to be away from her. But it's an ongoing relationship. And I think for these gems, Israel can also give them a really safe and semi-familiar playground to explore their Jewish dimension, explore the Zionist beliefs, like explore these things, because I think what's happening in Israel, which is a bit more challenging in North America, it's very fluid.
Right.
I can decide to put on tefillin every single day and find a shul 2 meters away, and the following week go to Tel Aviv and eat not kosher food. I can do these things. It's close. It doesn't mean I have to label myself. I don't have to move a neighborhood. It
Right.
can all happen at the same time. And at the end of the day, our goal is to have them engaged. Whatever
Right.
they choose is.
And I think
Yeah,
that a lot of young adults and a lot of these gems in North America aren't exposed to this level of freedom and ability to choose. And I think the value of so many of these programs is just giving them the option to say, hey, why don't you try some different things out and figure it out for yourself, you know?
And that goes back to what I was talking about for the program providers. It's like, as program organizers, how can we give them varied experiences, spiritually, Jewishly, work-wise, geographically, different types of people? Like, we want them to be exposed to all those people, because at the end of the day, we want to help them develop their relational self. So the more things I'm in relation to, the more I'm kind of consolidating and furthering my process of individuation. And the question is, what will give our kids the biggest playground, the biggest sandbox to play with, that's still within more or less our culture, our values.
Mm-hmm. So
and I think
go ahead, please.
The only thing I wanted to say, like, I think we have to stop being scared of controversy and conflict.
I agree.
Like, I think, like, a lot of us are just trying to say, like, let's not talk about politics. I think we should talk about this. I think we should have our kids have these gems in this discourse, meet both sides, really wrestle with it, not just surround themselves in their own echo chambers with their own like-minded people. This is the chance to do it, because I'm reminding you, for the rest of their lives, they're going to choose and attract to their life people that they're more or less comfortable with.
Right.
Right. So this is one of the last opportunities, except for the workplace, which they're also going to choose, of actually helping them be stretched by blocking their exits and putting them with people, the melting pot, with things and people and ideas and locations and situations that will challenge them. Because from that point on, they're going to put themselves in their comfort zone, professionally and personally.
Right. I wanted to return to something that you mentioned in the slideshow, which was, do you think that over the course of interviewing all these gems, that towards the end, did their construct of home change, and how does Aliyah play into all of this? Does it come from the gems themselves? Do you feel like it comes top down from program providers? What are your thoughts on all of this?
So that's a big question. I feel like Aliyah these days is kind of a sensitive word. It's been like that for a while now. Notice, as a Jewish agency emissary, I never once did a session about Aliyah in the 2.5 years in London. Like, it's not anymore. The discourse is not anymore of like, Aliyah is the best. Everyone make Aliyah. All Jews should make Aliyah. I think we're past that. For years, we haven't been in that discourse. What I've actually noticed is that, interestingly enough, the actual programs don't push that much anymore for the Aliyah. For the ones that actually made Aliyah, it was much more of their individual kind of hunger and curiosity. And I know from my own program, 3 participants throughout the years made Aliyah. Those 3 people were actually fascinated by the army and were fascinated by the liberty they had in writing. They were also English, so were even more proper. And it was like, wow, I could just open up the tie and just be myself. For those 3, actually, I never spoke to them about Aliyah, and it came from them. And it's interesting that out of the 3, 2 stayed, 1 kind of went back and forth and ended up going back to England. But I think also that's fine. I think we're not in a world anymore where you just go one way. The world is circular. And I think when I sent you guys a thesis, there's different models of how people do this immigration, partial immigration, full immigration. So I think what's happening for a lot of these gems in Israel, just their experience of it. And a lot of times, I'll just give you an anecdote. A lot of times they come to Israel and then people say, oh, where are you from? So they'll say from Toronto. And a lot of Israelis will say, why are you here? I'd love to be in Toronto. Like, what are you even doing here? Can we get married? Can I move to Toronto? Right? Like, they just want to leave Israel. So, and these people and these judges are like, wait, why do they want to leave? So all that idea of, like, in fact, there's a lot of, I think just this whole, I think a lot of times parents and the underdog and the judges are more scared that they're going to be brainwashed for Aliyah. When in fact, the reality is, especially in today's, also in Israeli political climate, a lot of people are very unhappy here. So I think also the idea of like the critical thinking is going to push these gems into both reassessing Toronto, reassessing Israel. And for me, what I would be pushing for is, can they make their own mashup? The Toronto-Israel combination that works for them. How can they bring the Israeli into Toronto and the Torontian into Israel and find that? And I can say, as someone who's kind of bilingual and bicultural, there's an advantage to that. In Israel, I know there's other options. When I'm in America, I know there are other options. There's a tax for that, and I do want to put that out there. Is the tax for that once again is home? So where is home? And that goes back to our discussion about feeling insignificant others.
I wanted to actually go way back and talk a little bit more about the kids that you actually interviewed and their personal motivations for coming to Israel. And do you think that over the course of their time, just using your own personal opinion, that their reason changed and evolved?
I think for a lot of them, they didn't really know why. Again, like I said before, some of them for fun, some of them just because they were in the youth movement, that's what everybody does. Some of them was like, I just can't wait to get out of here. Okay. And I think what happened as it was going, and as they were slowly just trying to like live life and try to make like just experience the madness that is Israel, the madness of being in a semi-autonomous program for the first time in your life. You're 18 years old and you're on your own. And for some of these kids, it's their first time exposure to like just like going to parties and drinking and having that as an experience and meeting soldiers and meeting people. And suddenly they're all over the place. So I think for a lot of them, they're flooded in the beginning. And it really sends them thinking, I don't think a lot of them are thinking, why did I come? A lot of them are thinking like, who am I and what do I want? For some of them, they switched majors. A lot of them would sign up for their undergrad before they came. And as they were going, they actually changed majors. For some of them, they deferred another year. For a lot of these kids, this is like a big opportunity to kind of refresh the iOS, refresh kind of their core beliefs, refresh their presuppositions on themselves. And the questions they were asking themselves toward the end of the year is like, where am I going back to? How do I maintain this sense of self? Because there was this anxiety that my gap year friends, they know me in a certain way, but nobody at home knows me that way. Will they accept me like that? Will they love me like that? The sense of this free, yeah, go on.
I just wanted to put in a general call for questions from everyone watching at home so we have enough time to time it in at the end. So please feel free to send them in the comments on Facebook or here in our stream on virtualjcc.com. If you have anything else to add, I'll move on to the next question. If that's all right?
Move on, please. Sure.
So knowing what we know, you speak about Israel turning into a construct of its own. And regardless of whether participants find a home in it or not, there's largely this universal commitment after the programs that participants feel as though they have a stake in the future existence and prosperity of Israel. Are there any factors that you think attributed to this attitude more than others? Or is this simply a testament to what long-term exposure and experiential learning results in?
So I'd like to compare a gap year to birthright. Let's take the two extremes.
Please.
For birthright, Israel is like almost like a postcard. You do the greatest hits: Camel in Masada, Dead Sea, Tel Aviv. Like, so it's almost like it's like a first date. I don't even know anything about her. It's almost like a cliche. And I think, and if I compare the gap year, which is the complete opposite, it's a whole year. I won't be able to always look good. Israel won't always look good. It won't always be amazing. I won't have tons of peak experience. I'm going to have a lot of mundane, mediocre, tough days.
You're going to be volunteering every single day in challenging places, yeah, for sure.
Right. And that's more real. Like if you think about relationships, right? You have the first day, which is like, but then after the honeymoon's over, you've got life. And I think the reason Israel becomes a part of their life is because they've experienced themselves in different areas. Again, it's the relational self. We want these kids to have experience themselves in different, not just as a tourist, but also as, a performer here, and here they're volunteering, and here they're working there, and here they're a student. Like if they could access different parts of themselves in Israel, Israel will forever be part of their identity because it's a relational self. And suddenly London, for me, London's connected to improv, to theater improv. It's just going to be part of that. It's always going to be part of who it is for me. So Israel can offer lots of different experiences, also on the spiritual level, also in the Jewish religious area, but also in the artistic one, in the professional one. A lot of it is about human connections. Think about how much time they spend with other humans. They volunteer, they teach, they're in a cohort, They're roommates. They have so many people. So this is actually a year-long stage in human interaction and intimacy. And as a therapist, I'm saying, now I'm switching hats, like that's what most of these gems need, especially now with all the electronics. They need communication skills. They need to know how to build intimacy. They need how to be able to communicate with people that are different than them. They need how to be able to sustain conflict and tension. These are all skills that they need to build intimate relationship, to build a family, to be married.
Okay,
Yes.
we got a question from the website that I'm going to ask, which is, do you think these year-long programs are so impactful because the participants are still so young and impressionable? Would it be as impactful with an older crowd? This is a great question, especially because we see birth rate now pushing out into the 30s.
Right. So as we know, 30s are also emerging adults, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, slowly the 18 and the 25-year-olds, I have more in common than different. So there are also a lot of long-term programs for older people, older gems, basically after their undergrad. So it's been my experience that it really depends how hungry the person's coming to Israel. The 25-year-old who's coming, sometimes they're coming basically to find a partner, or they've decided they're making Aliyah. But for some of them, they finished their undergrad, and now they just want to get some experience, some life experience, and they want to do it in Israel. So I've really seen the difference. I think the difference is like the 18-year-old is much more, it's true, they're more impersonal, but it's also a character trait, because I've met 18-year-olds who were very, very rigid in their perception of their year. And they weren't very experimental. They weren't really playful in the sense of opening up and widening their expression, their business cards. So I wouldn't say it's so much into an age, more as like how open are they and how hungry are they to expand their business cards.
Great answer. And then the second question that just came in is, there's a common perception that Israeli youths are more mature due to time spent away from home during army service. Do you think the same perception will become common in North American Jewish communities with regards to kids who do these year-long programs? So I think they're saying that as these long-term programs become more and more and more popular in North America, do you think that we'll see this kind of shift in maturity among young Jewish adults in North America?
So I think maturity is subjective. So let's use this, I'll use the word individuation, a bit more cooked, okay? Because mature means that they're more, I think for me, I'd say, some of the people I interviewed, some of the kids were already a few months after they came back. And for some of them, they said, I suddenly see that I don't have a lot of common with kids my age. And that was kind of a crisis for them. But at the end of the day, I'm less concerned about that. Like, we want these kids to evolve and to mature and to advance in their individuation. I do think that a kid that takes a year off, because when they're in college, and I'm going to use a stereotype, okay? They're going to school, they might be working a little bit, they're going to go to parties. Like, that's going to be their life. When they go into gap year, they're exploring a lot of different things. They're meeting people on the edges. They're not going to meet middle-class the socioeconomical middle class that they're used to. They're going to be people from different shades, different cultures. They're going to be experiencing danger, poverty, conflict, protest. So I think what's going to happen is they're going to be getting knitted. I don't know if that's the right word. They're going to be knitted a lot more. They're going to be knitted. So when they go to their, the first day in their freshman year, something's going to be a bit different. And you know what? I think that's a good sign. And I think I'd rather than have that experience than coming overwhelmed or like, and I think after you've been knitted, like you're experiencing, they're going to be looking for and attracting to their lives similar people. Because you attract your life people at the same level of individuation, the same level of maturity, the same level of intimacy. So yeah, they're going to be attracting to their life people that are a bit more knitted, that have done a bit more work on themselves, that are ready for a deeper relationship, a more authentic communication. And they'll be able to withstand conflict. Why? Because this is another concept from therapy. There's a reflected sense of self, which basically means I'm judging who I am based on the feedback I'm getting, which is how we all start. It peaks obviously in high school. What are people going to think? And part of our job is to help these gems develop a solid sense of self, which means I know who I am, I know who I'm not, I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses. Because when I'm in a reflected sense of self, intimacy is dangerous. Because if I come too close to someone and he doesn't like me, or he doesn't think like me, or he doesn't think I'm good, I'm going to crumble. I'm going to break. So slowly I'm avoiding intimate relationships. But when I have a solid sense of self and I've done the work and I've gone through things, then I'm not scared of being in conflict. I'm not scared of coming close to someone who thinks different than me because I kind of know who I am.
Right.
And I can be more curious and less scared from people coming close to me, especially people that are different than me. And I think what's happening in the North American Jewish scene is that there's not enough kind of visceral meeting, encounters, crucibles. We're not challenging ourselves. Everyone's trying to be PC and not offend, but the price we're paying for it is we're not stretching the relational self of these gems.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to switch gears a little bit now to back to the parents and the idea of these semi-autonomous programs, which is many parents and probably a lot of the parents who are watching here today find a lot of comfort in the semi-component of semi-autonomous programs. But many of the participants that you interviewed felt that these rules imposed on their sense of self and freedom, some of them called them annoying, horrible, waste of time. Is this the price to pay for program facilitators having some level of supervision? Or do you believe that there's a further compromise that needs to be made in negotiating the role of staff in the lives of the participants over the course of a year?
So when you say that, when you read that quote, I think about my kids. My daughter's 5 years old. So sometimes she'll say, I hate this. I hate you're the worst Abba in the world. But obviously we don't take it personally. We hold her and we know that's her way. I think for a lot of these kids, if we go to the other extreme, they've been dependent for 18 years. If we throw them into complete independence, they might get lost. What we're needing there is that scaffolding. And I'm reminding you again, part of our job as parents, as we're negotiating the transition into our kids being adolescents, is to stop taking everything they're saying so personally and be consistent, not being insulted, not always being in a drama with them. So I think the semi-autonomous program, it's never going to be perfect. You're going to either err to the side of too much structure or to too much freedom. At the end of the day, if we want to stretch our kids, these gems, we need to kind of force them to do things they would want to do on their own.
Right.
So if we just give them the stipend and said, do whatever you want, they'd probably do what they were going to be doing back home. We want to give them that experience. This is one of our last chances to help stretch these gems beyond their comfort zone. Because they're going to choose their major, they're going to choose their friends, they're going to choose their work, they're going to choose their partner. But let's give them this one opportunity where it's wide enough, and we shouldn't be scared of them being frustrated or pushing back. In fact, that's healthy. We want our gems to push back, just like we want our kids to push back. On one hand, we want them to listen to us all the time, but we also want to raise kids that are critical thinkers, that are going to push back. So I think a lot of times it's on us, the parents and the service providers, to be able to withstand a certain level of comfort and pushback, and to realize they're also pushing up. Now, they're not just pushing us, they're pushing against us. This whole idea of ezer kenegdo in Hebrew, right? Somebody that's with me, but he's pushing back. Like, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for some feedback so they can push up and explore who they are. So yes, let's create a semi-autonomous program. Let's give them that structure, that security, because there's no exploration without safety. Only when I feel safe, I can explore.
Right.
If there's no safety, I won't explore. I'm just going to hold on. So how do we find the sweet spot between giving them enough safety so they can explore, but not giving them too much exploration so they go into anxiety and shut down? It's finding that sweet, we call it the positive anxiety. Like, how do we give them enough positive anxiety that they'll be able to say, you know what, I'm going to get up and go. We call this practicing, in child development, where they go to the kindergarten, like you go to the playground, the kid goes, he just turns around. That's called emotional refueling. He turns around, he wants to see that mommy's looking, she smiles at him, and then he can keep going. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. We're giving them emotional refueling. We're holding reality for them. We're giving them that scaffold. Go explore. Whenever you turn around, I'm going to be there. I got you. You got it. You can do it.
I love the way that you just put that. That was great. So now that we're kind of close for time, I wanted to read all the way at the end of your report. You wrote 8 rules for the making of a good program. So I'm going to read those 8 rules for everyone, and I'd like to see if you still stand by those rules or if you have any additions that you'd like to make since. So the rules were, number 1, that there should be a variety of participants, preferably from different countries and socioeconomic backgrounds.
Put the slide on so everyone can see it. It's the last slide. Jared, if you could put the last slide, that's exactly what we did. Yeah. And that way you don't have to read it. We can just look at it together. That one?
Yeah. I have a different one. I have the one from the actual report.
Okay, whatever one you want.
Okay, I'm going to read from the actual report. It's pretty short. So the first one was that there should be a variety of participants, either from different countries or socioeconomic backgrounds, and this will encourage a melting pot and will create more mature and intimate relationships. The second point was concentrated living conditions with at least 2 people per room. The third one was shared household chores, such as cleaning, grocery shopping, and cooking. The fourth was having some sort of a volunteer component, which here at Jewish Service we take very seriously. The fifth was a wide array of mandatory activities and guidelines for the participants to challenge and test. The sixth was preferably geographical location that is far from where the participant grew up. The seventh is increases in cultural and mental differences between locations. And the eighth is a decrease in parental control and influence on the participant. Do these still hold true, or are there any additions that you'd like to make?
I think what jumped up to me, I still stand by those. I think what I would add here is, how could we create spaces for them to actually be, for them to process these unconscious, semi-conscious evolutions they're going through. I think when I was interviewing these gems, the fact that I wasn't their madrich, and I came out of nowhere, I just spent an hour just being curious about them, asking like, what is home for you? What's important for you? What do you want to be when you grow up? And I think for a lot of us, a lot of these programs, as we're running through the program, we're just busy. Like when we're parenting, we're just busy doing the logistics. How often do we sit and ask our kid, like, what's your favorite color? What do you want to be? Or tell me something I don't know. So I think what I would add to it is finding spaces or creating environments or having part of a staff or that function in the program where from time to time they get a chance to just like somebody asks them like the tough questions or just becomes curious about them, or have them a space where they can retell their story or their narrative. Right. And I think for those are little little intersections in their year where they can actually take stock. And by the way, all of the gems I interviewed, they all wanted their interview. They all wanted the transcript. And here's another crazy story, and thanks for reminding me that. Like last year, I'm running a workshop in Chicago, and this woman comes up to me and she says, I know you from somewhere. I'm like, where? And she says, you interviewed me in my gap year program about home. Wow. And she said, I still had that transcript. And what was wild, this was a decade later, and I found the transcript and we read it again together. And that just shows you, like, it's not only the gap year, it's like somebody wanted to hear her story and that stayed with her for a decade. Wow. That's what we want to create. It's not, because there's the experiencing self and there's the remembering self. The experiencing self is the Assael that's experiencing all this. But if I don't have some time to download this into the remembering self, I won't remember all of this. So how do we create spaces where they can actually tell it, write it, draw it, dance it, doesn't matter, but like they can express it, so that's actually going to go from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex. So they will remember it. They remember it when they tell it to someone, when they tell it to themselves, when they have to formulate their words. So how do we create these intersections throughout the year, and throughout our programs in general, where kids can tell their story, can be asked the tough questions and just hear themselves speak out loud? That is such an undervalued function that we need in our lives. By the way, also adults need that. Somebody to just listen to us. Somebody we can just speak our mind and hear what comes out of our mouth, and then say, oh, wow, that's what I believe in. Wow, that's really interesting. I chose those words.
Well, Dr. Romanelli, I think that you put it as best as we possibly can. So we'll wrap it up there. For anyone who enjoyed everything that we talked about today, would like some information on the slides or the full report, please feel free, in addition to the information on the screen, to check out jewishtoronto.com/Jewish-service. There you can find out more about the work that Jewish Service does and the year-long programs that we run coming up this September, with some applications are still open. So we hope to see you soon. And thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Bye.